What were the sexual education disaster stories from your school? A kid asked what popping a cherry was. And the teacher, who was a big burly idiot of a guy, bluntly said when women lose their virginity, they bleed all over the bed. And cherries are red. Absolutely mortified expressions washed over the face of every girl in the class. And I vaguely remember one girl saying not happening. Apparently some of them complained to their parents. And the next day he had to clarify. But with the most sarcastic only some of them do explanation. My mom was on the PTA at the time. Said some of the parents lost their poop. Another time, one kid asked why his balls hurt when he squeezed them. And he said because you're squeezing them. Don't do that. Catholic school was a trip. In 9th grade, they separated all the guys and girls in our year for sex ed. The guys got your typical Catholic school-esque hanky-panky talk about abstinence and going blind if you masturbate. While us girls got to go grocery shopping and bake cookies for the boys. We never did get a hanky-panky talk. And the next year, 4 girls got pregnant. The teacher set a dildo directly on the desk of the girl in front of me. And she bursted out crying and left the room. The separated boys and girls. The teacher for the boys let us to open Q and amp A anonymously on index cards we put in a box and he would answer them out loud. He spent most of the time going through them in front of everyone going not gonna read that one. Not gonna read that one. You come on guys. We pretty much learned that the balls get hairy. That's all. My middle school hanky-panky ed teacher held both hands out away from his body, palms turned up, and said I like to play with my wife's titties. Somebody asked how 2 women can have sex. The 60-year-old female health teacher told us that vaginal fisting is the standard method, complete with a demonstration for how to perform fisting. Not exactly sex ed because I had to go to a Catholic school. But all of us boys got banned less than 5 minutes into our puberty talk because 2 kids joked about a poorly drawn diagram of a penis. We were told we were gonna have the presentation at a later date. Never did. Once in 7th grade a girl asked if you could get pregnant by a screwdriver. I think about that girl a lot. This was in the late 90s in public middle school. The school held an assembly and brought in a group of these weird bodybuilders talking about hanky-panky and God. One of them tried and failed to rip a phone book in half. I don't remember much about it except they took a volleyball net and stretched it out so the holes got really big and said something to the effect of this is a condom. Imagine how easy it would be to throw a volleyball through that net. Not hard. Right? Well, condoms are made to protect sperm from passing through. But the AIDS virus is much smaller than sperm and just like a volleyball through this stretch out net, it can get through much easier. Edit. I'm shocked this was such a popular trend, or maybe even the same group power team. I just remember being appalled at the religious, abstinence only and anti-science messages. At my school the teacher talked about anal hanky-panky to preserve virginity, and anal stimulation in men. Now I realize she was really open to a lot. One guy in my class kept fainting when he saw any private parts. So because of him we didn't get sex ed. Science teacher here. We teach reproduction and puberty to 11-year-olds. I always do an anonymous question box every lesson so kids can ask every random question under the sun. All kids end up out of their seats putting books away. Spare paper and questions in the box so no one notices who put questions in the box. Most baffling question. What happens if a lady is pregnant and has a piercing down there? How does the baby get out? The only hanky-panky education that we got in my school was a 2-week course during our biology class. I lived in a pretty conservative part of Texas growing up so our hanky-panky education was basically just about abstinence and a few of the really gross STD pictures. Our biology professor showed us live birth every year. The worst part is that it was a video of her giving birth to her son. I never want to think about my teachers who her, especially while giving birth. They simply decided to stop teaching hanky-panky ed my year. No explanation. Once we even asked the health teacher, hey, are we ever going get hanky-panky ed? And she goes, do you guys really want to learn your vaginas and all that? Yes. We did. On a totally unrelated note. And almost 10 more before the kids in my class turned 20. Wild how that happens. I remember in year 10 some people came to our school for sex ed. They put the boys in a separate classroom and then talked about how to use feminine hygiene products for an hour. To a room of 15-16-year-old girls. I later learned from my friends that to the boys they talked about nocturnal emissions. Great job. Whichever organization that was. The hanky-panky ed teacher had a bag full of goodies, as she put it. I pulled out a dildo and some kid said, OMG, what is that? I swear I've seen one of those in my house. Boys and girls were paired to put condoms on bananas. One at a time. Fun times discovering who was proficient and who less so. Immediate chaos as some of the girls turn out to be quite talented at it. I was trying to put the condom inside out on the banana. It wasn't working. And my partner puts her hands on mine and helps me fix it. I remained seated after class was dismissed. The teacher forgot to put sound on for a birthing video, so he rewinded it. Watched a doctor shove a baby back into a woman's vagina by the head. My 8th grade health teacher was a bit of a disaster in her hanky-panky ed unit. She could not say penis or vagina, claiming that while she knew they were the right words, they were just too uncomfortable for her, so she went on about the male part and the female part. To avoid talking to us too much, she had us watch mostly videos about things like puberty, STDs and do these fill in the blanks worksheets. She showed us a perfectly serious educational video called Gonorrhea, No Clapping Matter. She did an open Q&A in which she disclosed, despite claiming she didn't want to, that she was infertile. One of the guys also managed to get one of the popular girls to ask her what's a necrophiliac. Is that, like, a good thing? To the teacher's credit though, she actually answered that one straight, though she kind of lost the room for a minute after. When we were in 8th grade we had the hanky-panky ed teacher come in and talk to us. She showed a picture of a normal PP, like one of those see-through pictures that explained each part. Well, in that it showed the balls. The teacher explained what they do and why you need them to impregnate a woman. She asked if there is any questions. Suddenly my friend Alex raises his hand and asks, let's say that a boy only has one ball. Could I still have kids? And that's how we all found out Alex only had one ball. My school brought in Pam Stenzel. John Oliver did a bit about her once. She told all the girls in the audience that they are like a piece of tape and that the more time the tape was used, they had sex. The tape would lose its stickiness, they would no longer be attractive to men. Basically said women who have hanky-panky outside of marriage are worthless. The crazier thing is this seemed normal at the time. We were about 15-16 yo, and our tutor, that weird chemistry teacher with jokes that aren't funny, came in the morning to our class. Gave out condoms. Started telling all about it, and then he opens a briefcase and puts a dildo on a front desk. The guy who was sitting there, Ukrainian and slightly homophobic, literally flew away to the back of the classroom on his chair. The hanky-panky ed teacher came into our class and was telling us how your testicles would shrink into your body or descend away from it in an effort to keep the sperm at a healthy temperature. A kid asked, so our balls have minds of their own? The classroom teacher, not the hanky-panky ed teacher, said reflexively. You can say that again. Most of the class didn't understand what the teacher meant, but one kid laughed so hard he threw up. Weird times. Not a disaster. But my health teacher said, boys, wrap it up. Girls, keep your knees shut. In hindsight it sounds like she was just encouraging the guys to all participate in gay sex. In 10th grade our health teacher asked for volunteers to demonstrate putting a condom onto a banana. Weirdly, She asked one student to put the condom onto the banana and another kid to awkwardly stand there holding the banana erect. The two guys who volunteered were best friends. One of them was very popular and the other one was a bit of hanger-on. People used to speculate that he had a thing for his popular best friend. Although that was probably just teenagers being gossips. When the two of them stood up to do the demo, people whispered to each other and laughed a little bit. Probably because of this rumor. The popular kid was the one holding the banana erection and the hanger-on was the one demoing the condom. When the chuckles started, the popular kid began to blush, which of course made the whole experience feel more intimate. Suddenly it's a classroom of 10th graders watching a maybe besotted hanger-on intimately handle his best friend's banana. As the hanger-on began rolling the condom down the tip of the banana, the popular kid, grimacing with embarrassment, squeezed the base of the banana a little too hard, and the banana burst. The peel split on the sides of the banana. The mushy fruit spurted out. The banana had prematurely ejaculated. I was at an all-girls Catholic school, and the scheduled time for hanky-panky ed, mostly puberty info, was during bio. Our teacher was a really young guy who was super sweet but also painfully awkward. He'd just sit at his desk while the female nurse came in to give us the talk. Well, the nurse was kind of old and she didn't realize that she was using a Sharpie to draw on the whiteboard instead of a marker. Long story short, there was a giant diagram of a vagina drawn in red on his whiteboard for months. His face when he realized it belonged on the Watching People Die Inside subreddit. I ask because I always see hanky-panky ed on TV shown as the students always shocked and disgusted as the teachers do this perfect rundown of a lesson. When I had hanky-panky ed our teachers were very uncomfortable and vague with everything and just ended up skipping the entire thing altogether. We were at our hormonal prime so might have been nice to know a thing or two. My first encounter was in elementary school, 6th grade, I believe. They separated us by gender and gave us the talk. The instructor was talking about genital hygiene at one point. I was genuinely confused when I learned some folks still have that extra bit of skin on their peepees and need to take extra care to wash up. I went home and for the life of me couldn't figure out what I was missing. Later on porn taught me what an uncircumcised peepee is. Grew up Mormon. Dad says one is a lock, the other is a key. Mom says hanky-panky is sacred. Any other info was beyond enlightening. Very young female health teacher with long fake nails extremely flustered while demonstrating putting a condom on something pee-pee shaped from the sculpture studio, Arts High School. After a few tries with us laughing she goes, "Come on. You'll know how to do this." Pregnant girl pipes up, "Miss, I clearly do not." So hanky-panky ed was taught by a woman named Dems Payne. It was a pretty standard lesson, minus her drawing the menstrual cycle in Sharpie on the whiteboard. The absolute horror though was finding out that she ran in the same social circle as my dad at a Super Bowl party. For years, my dad threatened my sister and I with dating her if we didn't behave. Tell the people in this thread saying they never got sex ed. Don't be afraid to ask anything or not too afraid to ask or are no stupid questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions about sex, protection, STIs and pregnancy with honesty and without making fun of you. My teacher for hanky-panky ed was super old, telling us all the classical stuff. Then we had our pay teacher tell us it's exactly like a BBQ. We had a teacher actually staple condoms to the pamphlet about safe hanky-panky practices. I went to a private Catholic high school and in health one day we were learning about STDs. The teacher decides he was going to play a video on VHS about a couple of them instead of discussing it in order to do some grading. 3/4 of the way through the video it completely cuts to a 90s porn with the woman moaning and being plowed from behind. The best part is the teacher had his headphones in and it takes a good 30 seconds before he notices us all laughing and promptly jump up to shut it off. The class was small so we all agreed to not bring it up since the teacher was super chill and didn't want to see him get chewed out by the administration. 10th grade. Catholic school. The health teacher added instruction on how to give a good blowjob. Secondary school. We had a visitor come in and talk to us about sexual health. We were crammed in a pretty small room. Chairs in neat rows. Things were fine. Fairly light-hearted and educational. Right up until the STD slither show starts. She pulls up a picture of severe genital warts and the guy behind me immediately projectile vomits chocolate milk all over himself and his row. I have emetophobia, so everything was kind of a blur after that. But I have vague memories of about 30 teenagers trying to book it out the room at the same time. And this guy was just sitting there covered in chocolate milk puke. A puddle of it around his feet, looking like he was contemplating drowning himself in it. Felt kinda bad for him. But it didn't stop me bringing it up every time I bumped into the guy for the next 10 years till I moved.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.